Alright, welcome to this video. What I'm going to be talking about in this video is how to actually build an AI system or a business system that uses AI that actually flows through your entire business. And what do I mean by that? A lot of people are building AI agents that do things like automate social media posting, give smart feedback based on transaction history, automate feedback to sales agents for leads, add tasks to CRMs, and all sorts of little weird and wonderful places that AI can have really productive and meaningful and financial benefits within your business's processes. The problem with all of the AI automation videos that are out there is that nobody's talking about how this is actually a system that needs to work in with your other business information, and they're just focusing on that specific AI automation. And the problem with that is that when you're building a social media bot, wouldn't you like it if it understood your business's context, the projects that you've worked on, the clients that you've worked with, the way you talk, all of that kind of background information that in the long run is going to improve the accuracy of the responses that you're getting from an AI agent. Same goes with automating building scoping documents and proposals and tasks. Wouldn't you like it if that information had the context of a project, had all of the communication data that you've been talking to with clients for months, trained in a knowledge base, so that when it builds tasks, it understands the context and it's going to have a better output. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. Now, if you haven't seen my step-by-step series where I go through the service lifecycle, so everything from client acquisition all the way through to project delivery, and I look at how we can use AI in each of these steps, which are common across pretty much all service-based businesses, and how we can use AI to literally drive 5-figure savings and remove a whole lot of manual processes through each of these different steps. But what I'm going to be doing here is creating a real visual understanding of how this system works across the entire business. Once I start getting cracking in here, you're gonna see exactly what this is. So this is the, I guess, process automation side of the brain working, where we have to think about the entire business as a whole and not just one specific operation. So one of the key things in every service-based business is the client. And I'm going to make this little circle here. Now, everything really centers on a client. So the client comes in, we have leads, we have meetings, we have emails with a client. If those go well, we might then quote out a project for a client, develop a proposal for a client. And if that goes well, we may then start a project with a client. We might send invoices to a client. We might have financial reporting associated with a client. We might have tasks and more communications associated with a client. So you can see here how a client is a key part of any service-based business, and a lot of the data is going to link back to that client. So what I mentioned there was we have information associated with the client. So in our case, we have meetings, we have emails, and we have messages. Now you might do messaging through Slack, maybe you have phone calls, whatever the case is. These are our specific businesses' 3 ways of negotiating with a client. So I'm just going to, or communicating with a client. Cool, now I'm gonna give this a little color. Oh, okay, that looks great. Let's tidy this up. Oh, that was easy. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna call this communications. So this is our communication section. And it's linked to a client, so. Cool. So we have the communication side of a client, and I'm gonna call this the basis of an AI client intelligence system. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we can use communication data. That's really the basis of our context. So we're gonna be having conversations about projects, deliverables, tasks. That's all gonna be communicated through those data types. So to begin to build a system that's going to be able to help you in the rest of the aspects of your business, we have to first set up a system that is storing that information and uploading it to the AI's knowledge base. The next steps from there I would call are the sales process. So I'm gonna copy this. And we have the sales process. So here we have leads, we have clients, and that's probably it at this stage. Actually, let's put scopes and proposals in here. Now, depending on your business model. Maybe you classify a proposal, you charge money and it converts into a job before it becomes a proposal. But in this scenario, I'm just gonna say that that's all part of the kind of quoting lead stage where we've got a client come in, we're trying to convince them on possibly purchasing a service. We've built a scope document, we've done a discovery phase, whatever the case is. This is another part of this. Cool. We have the communications. Then what happens is we have the project. So I'm just gonna call this client acquisition / scoping. Cool. And I'll probably put this next to, here. Now let's actually just, cool. Now from there we go to a project. So I'm going to call this project management. And I'm actually going to separate this into 2 separate categories. So if I come down here, I'm going to create a new shape. I might use this one. And I'm going to call this project. And that happens from here. Cool. Now within a project, we have 2 things. I'm going to call this financial management. I'm going to call this project management financial. And what is in here is we have invoices, we have bills. You might have some sort of agile project management method. So you might have reports. I'm going to say timesheeting and reports. It's just some of the things that you're gonna have in that section of things. And then we've got operations. So I'm gonna call this operations. And in here, you've got things like tasks. You've got communications still. What else do you have? Again, we've got meetings in here. I'm just going to add that as a duplicate field. But once a project starts, we've got the task side of things, which is where very much like Kanban boards, managing tasks. There's still a whole lot of communication that's happening in there. Now I'm going to change this to go. Let's put that as pink. Let's just put this as purple. Cool. So we have the 2 things that are a part of a project. Now, that is essentially the client lifecycle to a degree. Now, what we have outside of this is we also have the business. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, no, where will I put this? I'll put this down. I might put this down here at the bottom. Now, what we have in the business is we have, let me copy this. I'm gonna call this just the business section. And in here we have things like brand. Under brand, I'm gonna have, so when we generate scope documents and we build proposals, we obviously have and it kind of comes under the brand, but your business could be a business that really focuses on small businesses. You could be a business that really focuses on large businesses. So what you wanna do is you want to have a section in your business where you can upload things like basically training documents on your brand, who you are, who your target market is, what your pricing strategy is, because that's going to affect how the AI goes and does things like automates building scopes, automates building proposals, provides feedback to your leads, to your sales agents on how they performed in a call. Here we're gonna have company/brand information. We will have pricing strategies. I'm gonna say domain expertise, scoping, scope training. We have, that's also scope training / proposals. Cool. Now, where does this tie into a holistic system? Well, if we think about things like financial tracking and smart reporting, social media, automated social media posting, or social media assistance, that's going to connect. So we want that to connect somewhat to the system that we have working up here, but that's going to be really based on your brand and some of the information that you provide in this section. But this really leads into clients, because essentially the clients come from your business branding, outreach, whatever the case is. So I'm going to put a step in here. It is a bit of a full cycle because more projects grows everything in here. So I'm going to call this is the lead cycle, and what I'm going to do is get one of these shapes, and I'm going to call this marketing. Cool. Now, what happens with marketing? We have extra things that we want to build here. So let's call this the channels. Now we might have social media marketing. We might have blog posting, SEO. Some of the things that we can kind of think of, because that's going to help us build the right fields to use AI to jump through this entire thing. Now, as you can see, I'm trying to link everything in the business. So we know that the company and brand information and the domain expertise and scope is going to be used in the proposals, and it's going to be used in the scope documents. So these are going to be training materials on how we typically write scope documents, how much we typically quote certain things, what to be careful of, the structure, etc., etc. Pricing strategies as well is going to link into both of those. But these may also, our reports, we don't need that. These may also flow into social media marketing and blog posting. So I'm just going to put it into the entire section. Now it's starting to look a little bit technical, but you really do need to have this bird's eye view vision on your entire business's operations, because the way we've laid things out here, and feel free to go check this video out because I literally walk through every typical step of the service lifecycle, and we actually document exactly what AI fields could be used in here to improve efficiency in your business, basically. And you kind of need this bird's eye view understanding of how your business works in all of its different elements to then start to think about information that might be used here, should be categorized in your database to be later used in sections, other sections, so that we can, it really comes important when you're trying to organize your database properly, attach the right metadata, set up the right filters so that you can basically build a really comprehensive AI knowledge base that is actually going to be helpful throughout your business. Now, we've done exactly this, but what I should have done at the very start was probably built a diagram like this to match what we have over here. Now, we'll just delete that, probably don't need that. But we have, I mean, the client probably comes down here. I guess this doesn't really make sense anymore. We can probably just drag drag that here. And we'll just say, the client acquisition happens there. Now, hopefully what happens is hopefully we should get a review here. And that's kind of the start of the life cycle through the project, end of the project life cycle. This hopefully boosts this some more into marketing, more clients, and this whole thing kind of just goes round and round. And what we set up is a system where all of the data types and all of the steps in each of these, in this entire process, is stored and categorized against the client in the vector database, so that as we go through, we use our marketing data. If we have any data relevant to a client from marketing, we can use that, any input forms that are in your funnels, whatever the case is. Then we come in and the client comes through the door and you start communicating before any work starts. We're having meetings, we're sending emails, we're sending messages. That contextual information where we're trying to discover what the problem that the client wants to solve is getting stored in our knowledge base. So when we move into the scoping phase or the acquisition phase, we can then do things like create AI agents to advise your sales agents on exactly how they should be selling your solution based on your company's branding information and your company's pricing strategies, etc. And also any possible information that you have about a client up until that point. And when we go to build scopes and proposals, instead of having to review all of this information, which if you're a large business, this has probably touched multiple people. So by the time someone comes to scoping, there's a good chance that same person wasn't the person that helped nurture the sale up until that point. And they don't have some of the contextual information that was uncovered over here, easily accessible. But with an AI, we have all of that information and we can build scopes and proposals in 60 seconds. And I have a video doing exactly that on my channel if you're interested. We build that scope document, we build that proposal, then we go through to a project. And all of a sudden we have all of this contextual information so that when we jump on more meetings and we talk about tasks and what needs to happen in a project, the AI can think based on all of the information that we have in a project and automatically build tasks in your CRM platform that are actually accurate, that are actually contextually relevant. Because if you set up just random AI agents in each of these separate stages without them having the knowledge of what's happening in the business holistically, there's a maximum efficiency that you can get from that kind of approach. At some point, the AI has to be understanding exactly what's happening in your entire business. And without a system that has a holistic view and stores the data from all of your processes, you're going to hit a cap on how good AI is actually going, or how useful AI is actually going to be in your business. Now, I know this didn't jump into the technicalities because I do exactly that in this 11-step series. So if you want to see how to actually create everything that I talked about in this FigJam right here, I've got a video series on exactly that you can watch. So feel free to jump into it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. If you found any of this useful, I've got a completely free AI and low-code community that you can join in the link in the description. And I've got heaps of videos on this channel on how you can build all sorts of cool things to generate serious savings and save having to do all the boring, manual, repetitive stuff that people are doing in businesses everywhere. So if you're interested in that, feel free to keep watching, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.